Welcome back for Chief Women Arise talk show. We're talking today about love. So love is patient and love is kind, right? But love is really how we should treat each other. So I want you to think about that. You know, how should we really treat each other? And you know, the golden rule says we should treat each other as we want to be treated. I've been kind of talking to my son a lot about this, and sometimes he'll want the biggest slice of bread, or he'll want the bigger pancake. And I said, but if you want the bigger pancake, then actually your strategy should be to give me the bigger one, because you're giving me what you really want. Isn't that interesting? So, you know, we need to think more about how do we want to be treated, and how can we overcome those problems of feeling like, you know, maybe we need to take it. We just need to take it because we can't just, you know, get it. We need to just take it, right? Another thing is love is the #1 business strategy. That's actually from my mentor, Pedro Adeo. Talks about love is the #1 business strategy. And when you love with your heart, you know, people will see your genuineness and they'll be drawn to it and they'll want more and more. And they'll want to do business with you. You know, it takes 7 times for somebody to see you to, you know and like and trust you to be able to do business with you. And so, I mean, sometimes it's not always the case, but typically on average, it's 7 times. And when we show that love to them, then they're going to want to do business with you, right? But love is a difficult thing too. I mean, was it maybe difficult for my son to give that big pancake away? Yeah, it was. You know, for a child that age, that's difficult to do. But what are some things that maybe were difficult for you? And you know, to the audience, what are some difficult things that you've had to overcome with love, and maybe love people even when you felt like they're unlovable? And you know, I know that sometimes after you've had a baby, you know, I've had a lot of experiences with being with different families and the dynamics after a baby's been born, and it can sometimes change a relationship. Quite often, actually. One of my favorite books to recommend to new moms is Becoming Us. And it's all about this, how the relationship between the husband and wife, you know, changes after you've had a child, a baby. And how can you continue to be who you are when this new person has entered into your family unit? So, you know, it's a difficult thing, and I think it takes a lot of practice. So what are some difficult things that you guys have had to overcome when we're talking about love?
I know for me, just when you were talking about the whole pancake thing, I thought about, you know, our greatest action of love sometimes is giving. But also I think about something we told kids all the time: sharing is caring. And so we preach that a lot. And I know for me, I grew up as the only girl, so I had 2 brothers. So we had to share, but really not really, because I was a girl and I was always going to have my stuff. And then as I got older, and even with my husband, especially in our first couple of years of marriage, I find myself being very territorial about my things. So even down to if I drunk my Dr. Pepper, if I bought Dr. Pepper and it was a 6-pack, if I went in there and it was like 2 missing, I'm trying to investigate where they went. And then I had to realize, for one, Shanette, you know, we're sharing an income, we're living together. You know, I had to get outside of that mentality. And I think a lot of the love that I had for him allowed me to see it differently, because I was growing up, you know, if this was mine, this was my brother's, this was my other brother's. But now I'm in a partnership. So if I buy a 6-pack, maybe it's okay if you get 1 or 2 and not stress myself out. But I know for me, that was a challenge the first 2 years, because it was like, that's mine. Then I had to realize, well, it's us. It's no more me, or this is mine. You know, we're doing this together in one house. You know, so yes, just like we shared the bills, we shared the budget, maybe we can share the Dr. Pepper.
Yes.
And so that's something I had to grow with.
Dr. Pepper, but not coffee.
No, thankfully he doesn't like coffee, so God knew what I needed.
Yeah, and when I think about love, I think about sacrifice. And for me, of course, my relationship with my husband, that's the greatest sacrifice. Because as you said, Shanette, I live in the same house with him. I share everything with him. So learning to put him first is a true sacrificial love. And Naomi, you were talking about that newborn baby. And I can remember after having 4 that it was so easy to love that child. You know, the unconditional love just came so naturally.
Because he can't talk back to you.
Exactly. And you know, so I realized in that first few years with my first son is I had trouble loving my husband because it was so much easier to love the baby.
Yes.
And to be able to transfer that and, you know, be pure in your love toward him is, you know, it's a real challenge, but it's so rewarding and so important, you know, that we learn how to do that.
That's
Absolutely.
good. How about you?
You had mentioned earlier about the golden rule, and
Mhm.
a picture came to my mind from Andy Warhol, and it's a picture of, and it says the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And in the picture, it was all type of people in the picture. I don't know if you guys seen it, but it was like Black, white, Jewish, Asian, just all the different children of the earth encompassed in this picture. It's a very
Wow.
famous picture by Andy Warhol. And I think in that picture, he tried to really embellish what that verse was about, that all of these people on this picture are worthy of love. All of these people,
That is so.
regardless of their differences, regardless of anything, they're all worthy of love, and do unto them as you would have them do unto you. So that's what popped in that image popped up in my mind when you had read that. But as I've matured, and it's taken a lot, and I'm still maturing, but being able to love some of the most difficult people, some of the most unlovable people, it was a process, you know. It was just took maturity to learn, and my faith helped me to learn how to love the most unlovable. 2 weeks ago, we had a shooting in Jacksonville that really rocked this city. And when I found myself praying that week, and what came out was and the prayer was, I was praying for the shooter's family.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I was praying for his family. Now, if I hadn't grown to maturity, I might have just been praying for the victims. But there was losses across the board. And then another part of that is the shooter itself, thinking about, but did he ever get a chance to experience real love? Did he, because if he would have, he might not have did that heinous crime.
Right.
So then that made me to think, well, what can I do more to love the unlovable, to get them before they act out in this way?
Yeah.
So
That's so good. You know, I think one of the hardest things is to love the people that are closest to us. And it's interesting that that's one of the most difficult relationships is those that are closest to us. But I think because we spend so much time with them, that it's so difficult. But also because the enemy doesn't want us to be close to and love those people that we spend so much time with. Right. And they know us so intimately that it's so easy to pick their buttons or whatever. But, you know, going back to what you were saying, Pastor Shana, that unconditional love, it's so difficult sometimes to do, but it's so necessary. And I remember describing that to my ex-husband one time when we were married, and I would say, you don't understand what unconditional love is because you don't know Jesus, you know, on a personal level. And unless you've had that relationship with Jesus, you can't fathom that understanding of being able to say to, your arch enemy, I love you,
Yeah.
and really mean it with your whole heart. And I said, there's people in this world that have forgiven someone who murdered their child, and that was just unfathomable to
Yeah.
him. So it's unfathomable to people who just don't know the love of Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's so sad that they do. But the love will conquer everything. Love conquers all. It erases all sin. It is the thing that we need to do the most.
Absolutely.
And I think it's the biggest principle that we need to live our lives on, is love. And so how can we really love better? And I think it takes practice, for one thing. It really takes a lot of practice. Practice in an everyday way, right? I've been waking up every morning, and I don't know if y'all noticed on my social media, but I've been posting these little love dares. And I got this years ago, and it's just a little box, and it has maybe 30 cards. I think it's probably one day for each day of the month. And it's love dare for your children. They have different ones. So they have love dare for your spouse or whatever. But I got the love dare for your children. And, so it gives you a little tip each day to be able to, love better. And so one of them is, love is patient, and said, take a sticky note or whatever and write love is patient on it, and then put it on your fridge or somewhere that you're going to see it all the time. And so it can remind you to be patient. And one of these, one of the things that I always remember about a time when I saw someone being loved unconditionally was one of my neighbors. She would always say mean things about me, and she would say that I was playing my music real loud in the middle of the night, and just all kinds of horrible things that really weren't true at all. And her bedroom backed up to my bedroom. We lived in a condo at this time. And she would just say horrible things. And even when my son was there, she'd say horrible things about me. And so one day, my mom actually went outside, and she saw her, and she put her arms around her, and she said, you know what? I love you, and Jesus loves you. And she gave her a hug. And it just melted her heart, and tears started rolling down her face. And it changed her forever.
Yes.
After that, she gave us a gift for Christmas. She came over to our house. She sent us letters after we moved, all kinds of things that it just changed. She said, nobody has ever loved me like that.
Yeah.
And so we just don't know how broken people are, and how much that they need even just a hug.
Yeah. Because love is demonstrated.
Absolutely.
It's more than words. And I want to make a correction. That painting was by Norman Rockwell,
Oh, good.
not Andy Warhol. Norman Rockwell. It just came back to me. I'm sorry.
I wanted to share, like you were talking about loving difficult people and situations. And when I was growing up, I was a victim of molestation. And I had one family member in particular who would just tell everybody I made up the story and all that stuff. So when I was younger, even having a relationship with God, I thought I was still right and not really, kind of having hatred towards that person. But it wasn't until I got to a certain point with God and I started to read the Bible more, be intimate with God in prayer, that he even shifted the way I was praying and thinking about that person. Even the person who committed the act against me, he changed my heart. And then because if God says that all things are possible, who am I to say that God can't heal, deliver that person? Or who am I to say that that person even hasn't repented to God? Because that's their personal relationship. So I had to grow. And I had to change from hate or bitterness. And, in some instances, it could have been justified, how we justify things. But if I wanted to be the bigger person and be that example of love, because like you said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's like, okay, now I have to show them love. I have to still respect them. I have to take their number off block because we're in the cancel culture. We have to get outside ourselves and, what's offending us to really see and meet that person where they are and love them. And I think for me, that was a good eye-opening experience because even he changed the way, I started to pray about other people. Like you were saying earlier, instead of just praying for the victims, now I'm in some situations, I'm able to pray for that perpetrator or, that those people in prison because I have more compassion that God can do anything in their life. And it gave me like a hope to even love more. And I think that's when we're really talking about that unconditional love, because some things in our life happen to us that are not our fault.
That's right.
But we still have to show forth that love to that person, like you said, with your neighbor, because you never know what they need or what they've been through in the end.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So, I just want to wrap up by saying that we never know what's going to affect somebody. So step out of your comfort zone, like Pastor Shana has already shared with networking, but step out of your comfort zone and, love somebody regardless of what they do to you. I know that's really hard, but, if you have a relationship with Jesus, then it's going to be easier because he's going to walk beside you. And if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, now's the time, right? Never too late to say yes to Jesus. So we'll wrap up with that. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.